The polished marble beneath her feet didn't reflect reality, only a cold white light that made the executive floor's luxury feel like a glass tomb. At 3 in the morning, Kross Industries should have been breathing only through its mechanical lungs. But the air tasted unmistakable tonight. It tasted of metal, of storm, and of something about to break. Maelis knew the rules of her contract better than the lines on her own hand. Never enter the executive suites. Never ask about the red-tinted windows. And above all, never touch the grand piano on the 47th floor. The fluorescent lights in the executive corridor hummed at a frequency that made Maelis's teeth ache. She pressed her cart forward, wheels squeaking against polished marble that reflected nothing but cold white light. 3 in the morning. The building should have been empty, silent, except for the mechanical breath of the HVAC system. But tonight, something felt wrong. The air tasted metallic. She'd been cleaning Kross Industries for 6 months now, always the graveyard shift, always alone. The pay was obscene for janitorial work, but the rules were absolute. Never enter the executive suites. Never touch the piano on the 47th floor. Never ask questions about the red-tinted windows or why certain offices required blackout protocols during the day. Maelis didn't ask questions. She needed this job. Her fingers tightened around the mop handle as she approached the corner office, the one with Dravian Kross's name etched in silver on black glass. The door stood ajar. That never happened. She could see the edge of his desk, the leather chair turned toward the window where the city sprawled below like a circuit board of light. Thunder rolled through the building's bones. She should have walked past, should have pretended she saw nothing, but the sound that drifted through that crack in the door made her freeze. Not a voice, a vibration, low and sustained, like a cello string held too long, resonating with something primal in her chest. Someone was crying. No, not crying. Humming. The sound of a child trying to self-soothe, the way her brother used to during thunderstorms before the accident. Maelis abandoned her cart. Her sneakers made no sound on the marble as she pushed the door wider. The office was vast, minimalist, dominated by floor-to-ceiling windows that showed the storm rolling in. Lightning fractured the sky. In that brief illumination, she saw him. A boy, maybe 7 years old, curled beneath the grand piano in the corner, hands pressed over his ears, rocking slightly. His eyes were closed, but not in the way of sleep. In the way of someone who'd given up on opening them. "Hey," she whispered, crouching down. "Hey, it's okay." The humming stopped. The boy's head tilted, tracking her voice with unnatural precision. "You're not supposed to be here." His voice was soft, careful. "Father's rules. No one comes to this floor. I'm the cleaning lady. I go everywhere." Maelis kept her voice steady, the way she'd learned with her brother. "What's your name?" "Lysander." He uncurled slightly, revealing pale skin that seemed to drink in the darkness. "The storm is too loud. Everything is too loud." She understood immediately. The sensory overload. The way the world could become a weapon when your nervous system ran too hot. "Can I come closer?" He nodded. A jerky movement. Maelis crawled under the piano, feeling the vibrations of thunder through the floor. The space smelled like expensive wood polish and something else. Something copper and old. She settled beside him, not touching, just present. "The thunder isn't just sound," she said quietly. "Feel it here." She placed her palm flat on the floor. "It's a rhythm, like a heartbeat. You can predict it." Lysander's hand moved tentatively, mirroring hers. His fingers were cold. Not cool. Cold like marble, like something that had never held warmth. "You're not afraid of me," he said. It wasn't a question. Should I be? Everyone else is. They smell like fear when they're near me, like copper and salt. His head tilted again. "You smell like lavender and exhaustion." The lights flickered. Lysander's hand shot out, grabbing hers with surprising strength. His grip was ice. "Don't leave, please. When the lights go out, I can't. I don't know where I am." Maelis's heart hammered, but she held still. "I won't leave, but I need to do something. Okay, trust me." She reached up, fingers finding the piano's lowest keys. She pressed down slowly, letting the deep note resonate through the instrument's body, through the floor, through their hands, a steady pulse. Another key, another, creating a pattern beneath the chaos of the storm. Lysander's breathing slowed. His grip loosened, but didn't release. "My mother used to do this," he whispered, "before she left, before I couldn't see anymore." Maelis kept playing simple notes, a grounding rhythm. She didn't ask what he meant, didn't ask why a child was alone in a corporate tower at 3 in the morning, or why his skin felt like touching winter itself. The office door slammed open. "Step away from him." The voice was a blade wrapped in velvet. Maelis's head snapped up, cracking against the piano's underside. Through the gap between floor and instrument, she saw polished black shoes. Expensive. Custom. The kind that cost more than her monthly rent. Now, she scrambled out, hands raised. The man standing in the doorway was tall, severe, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than her car. His face was all sharp angles and controlled fury, eyes the color of smoke catching light. Dravian Kross. She'd seen his photo in the lobby, but photographs lied. They couldn't capture the way he seemed to pull gravity toward himself, the way the air pressure changed when he entered a room. He was scared, I was helping. "You touched the piano." His voice dropped lower. "You touched my son." "The storm." "I don't care about the storm." He moved with liquid precision, placing himself between her and Lysander. "You violated 3 protocols. You're terminated. Security will escort, father, no." Lysander emerged from under the piano, small hand finding his father's sleeve with practiced ease. She helped. She made the thunder make sense. She didn't smell afraid. Dravian's jaw tightened. Something flickered across his face too fast to name. He looked at Maelis properly then, really looked, and she felt pinned by that gaze like a specimen under glass. "You work the night shift." "Yes, you've never reported the irregularities you've witnessed." It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. "I mind my business." "And yet you entered a restricted area." A kid was crying. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the storm's distant rumble. Dravian's hand moved to Lysander's shoulder, protective and possessive. "Leave us." Maelis turned toward the door, throat tight. 6 months of good pay, gone. Back to scraping by, back to wait. She stopped. Dravian moved to his desk, pressed something beneath the surface. The door closed with a soft click. Locked. He withdrew a folder, black leather, and placed it on the glass surface. "I'd rather..." It wasn't a request. Maelis sat. The chair was too comfortable, designed to make people forget they were being devoured. Dravian remained standing, backlit by the storm. "My son requires specialized care. He's blind, hypersensitive to sound, touch, temperature. The condition is rare, permanent. Most caregivers last 3 days before they quit or break. I'm not a caregiver. I'm a janitor. You're observant, calm under pressure, and apparently You have experience with sensory processing disorders. His eyes narrowed. Don't bother denying it. The way you handled him wasn't instinct. It was training. Her brother's face flashed through her mind. The accident, the hospital, the years of learning to navigate his new reality before. She pushed the memory down. What do you want? Dravian opened the folder. Inside was a contract, dense with legal text. I want you to be his guide, his sensory interpreter. You'll accompany him during evening hours, help him navigate environments, provide grounding techniques during episodes. I'm not qualified. You're the first person he's trusted in 2 years. Something raw cracked through his controlled exterior. Name your price. Maelis stared at the contract, at the number written at the bottom, at the NDA clipped to the front, thick with clauses about discretion and consequences. Why evening hours? Why not day? Dravian's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. Because, Miss Gent, my son and I have a medical condition that makes sunlight inadvisable. The metallic taste in the air intensified. The cold of Lysander's hand. The way Dravian moved without sound. The red-tinted windows. Maelis looked at Lysander, still holding his father's sleeve, small and vulnerable and utterly alone. She picked up the pen. I'll need Tuesdays off, she said, and access to a sensory-friendly space where he feels safe. Dravian's expression shifted, almost approval, almost relief. Done, he slid the NDA forward. But understand this, what you're agreeing to goes beyond caregiving. You'll see things, learn things, and if you ever speak of them, I won't. You don't know what you're promising. Then tell me. Thunder shook the windows. Lightning illuminated Dravian's face, and for just a moment, Maelis saw something ancient looking back at her. Something that had watched centuries pass, like seasons. Sign first, he said softly. Then we'll discuss what you've really agreed to. The pen felt heavier than it should. Maelis pressed it to paper, her signature emerging in careful strokes across the NDA's signature line. The ink was black, but under the office's amber lighting, it looked rust-colored, blood-dark. Dravian collected the document with movements too fluid for someone his apparent age. He placed it in a drawer that locked with a sound like teeth clicking shut. The medical condition, Maelis said, keeping her voice level. The one that makes sunlight inadvisable. Xeroderma pigmentosum. Dravian's lie was smooth as silk over razor wire. Extreme photosensitivity. UV exposure causes cellular damage. Lysander inherited it. The explanation was clinical, reasonable. It explained the red-tinted windows, the evening hours, the pallor of their skin, but it didn't explain the cold that radiated from them both, or the way shadows seemed to bend toward Dravian rather than away from him. And the other things I'll see. Security protocols. Business dealings that require discretion. He moved to the window, his reflection barely visible in the treated glass. We have enemies, Miss Gent, competitors who would use any perceived weakness against us. Lysander's condition makes him vulnerable. Your presence here, your knowledge of our routines, it must remain absolutely confidential. Thunder rolled again. Closer now. The storm was settling over the city like a predator over prey. When do I start? Tonight. Dravian turned, and the lightning caught his eyes at just the wrong angle, making them reflect light like an animal's. Lysander needs consistency. Routine. He's been without proper support for too long. Where's his mother? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Maelis felt it in her lungs, in the sudden ache of her joints. Gone. The word was final as a coffin lid closing. It's been just the two of us for a very long time. Lysander appeared in the doorway as if summoned by the mention of absence. His small hand trailed along the wall, fingers reading the texture of expensive wallpaper like braille. "Is she staying?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "Yes," Dravian said, and something in his posture softened. "Not much, just enough to be noticeable. Miss Gent will be helping you in the evenings." "Maelis," she corrected, moving toward the boy. Her footsteps were loud against the hardwood, announcing her approach. "You can call me Maelis." Lysander tilted his head, processing the sound of her movement, the slight wheeze in her breath from climbing too many stairs. "You're tired. Long day," she admitted. "But I'm here now. Father says I need help." The boy's fingers found the edge of a side table, mapping its boundaries. "Because I can't see." "You see differently," Maelis said, crouching to his level. The floor was cold even through her worn jeans. "Your father wants me to help you navigate, to be your eyes when you need them." "I don't need eyes." There was no bitterness in his voice, just statement of fact. "I have everything else." Dravian watched this exchange with an expression Maelis couldn't quite read. Hunger, maybe, or grief so old it had calcified into something else entirely. "Show me," Maelis said to Lysander. "Show me how you see." The boy's face lit up, the first real emotion she'd seen from him. He reached for her hand, and his fingers were ice against her palm. Not cold like someone who'd been outside in winter. Cold like something that had never known warmth. "Close your eyes," he instructed. Maelis obeyed. The office disappeared into darkness behind her eyelids. "Listen." Lysander's grip tightened slightly. "The storm is 3 miles away. You can tell by counting the seconds between lightning and thunder. The rain will reach us in 7 minutes." Maelis focused. Beneath the ambient hum of the building systems, she could hear it, the distant percussion of rain against pavement, moving closer. "The air pressure changed 40 minutes ago," Lysander continued. "That's why your knees hurt. Old injury. Car accident." Maelis breathed. 5 years ago. "The elevator on the north side is slower than the south one. Mechanical issue in the pulley system. You can hear the grinding if you listen. And father," he paused. "Father's heart beats differently than yours. Slower, like he has all the time in the world." Maelis opened her eyes. Dravian stood perfectly still by the window, watching his son with an expression of such profound pain that it hurt to witness. "That's remarkable," Maelis said. "That's survival," Dravian corrected. "When you can't rely on sight, every other sense becomes a lifeline." He moved toward them, his steps silent despite his size. "But it's not enough. He needs to learn to move through the world safely, to function in environments that weren't designed for him. He needs to learn that the world can adapt to him too," Maelis countered. "Not just the other way around." Something flickered across Dravian's face. Surprise, perhaps, or recognition. "We'll start with the building," Maelis said, standing. Her knees protested, proving Lysander's observation correct. "He needs a mental map, tactile landmarks, consistent pathways." "I know the building," Lysander protested. "You know the executive floor," Maelis corrected gently. "But there are 43 floors below us. Cafeteria, server rooms, maintenance corridors, places where people gather, where life happens." "He doesn't need," Dravian started. "He needs to feel less alone." Maelis met the CEO's gaze directly. "That's what you're really asking me to do, isn't it? Not just guide him, connect him." The silence stretched thin as wire. "Yes," Dravian finally admitted. Rain began to strike the windows. Exactly 7 minutes after Lysander had predicted, the boy's face turned toward the sound, and Maelis saw longing there, raw and desperate. "When's the last time you felt rain?" she asked. "Don't remember." Maelis looked at Dravian. "The photosensitivity. Does it apply at night? In the rain? The UV index is negligible after sunset." "But nothing." Maelis was already moving toward the door. "Come on, Miss Gent. It's just rain, Mr. Kross. Not sunlight, not danger. Just water falling from the sky." She held out her hand to Lysander. The boy hesitated, his face turning toward his father, seeking permission he'd been trained to wait for. Dravian's jaw worked. His hands flexed at his sides. For a moment, Maelis thought he'd refuse, that whatever iron control he maintained over his son's world would snap shut like a trap. Then he nodded. Once, sharp, Lysander's hand found Maelis, and together they walked toward the elevator. The descent was silent, except for the mechanical hum, and Lysander's barely audible counting of floors. Dravian followed 3 steps behind, a shadow that breathed. The lobby was empty at this hour. Their footsteps echoed off marble that probably cost more than Maelis's annual salary. The security guard at the desk looked up, surprised, then quickly looked away when he saw Dravian's expression. The front doors were glass and steel, beaded with rain on the outside. Maelis pushed through them, and the night air hit like a baptism. It was warmer than the building's interior. The rain was steady, not quite a downpour but more than a drizzle. It smelled like ozone and wet concrete, and the peculiar mineral scent of a city being washed clean. Lysander stopped at the threshold. His hand trembled in Maelis's grip. "It's okay," she said softly. "I'm right here. I can hear it," he whispered. "All of it. Every drop." "Then let's feel it too." She stepped forward, pulling him gently with her. The rain touched his face, and Lysander gasped. His free hand came up, palm open to the sky, and his expression transformed into something Maelis suspected he'd forgotten how to feel. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated, childlike joy. Behind them, Dravian stood in the doorway. The rain didn't touch him. He remained just inside the building's overhang, but his eyes were fixed on his son with an intensity that made Maelis's chest ache. "It's cold," Lysander said, laughing, actually laughing. "And it's everywhere. I can feel where it hits the ground. The puddles, the way it runs down the street." "You're mapping it," Maelis realized, "the whole courtyard, just from the sound." "Everything makes sound," Lysander said, spinning slowly. Rain darkened his clothes, plastered his pale hair to his skull. "Everything has texture. The world isn't dark. It's just different than people think." Maelis glanced back at Dravian. The CEO's expression had cracked open, revealing something underneath that looked like grief and wonder tangled together. His hand gripped the doorframe hard enough that the metal bent slightly under his fingers. He was seeing his son, really seeing him, maybe for the first time in years. "Father," Lysander called. "Father, come feel it." "I can't." Dravian's voice was rough. "The condition, it's night," Maelis said quietly. "No UV. You said so yourself." Their eyes met. In that moment, Maelis understood what she'd really been hired for, not to help Lysander navigate the world, to help Dravian remember his son was still alive in it. Slowly, as if moving through water, Dravian stepped forward. The rain touched his shoulders, his hair, his upturned face. His eyes closed, and for just a second he looked almost human, almost vulnerable. "When's the last time you felt rain?" Maelis asked him. "Longer than I can remember. His voice was barely audible over the downpour. Lysander found his father's hand, small fingers wrapping around larger ones. "It's nice, isn't it?" "Yes." Dravian's other hand came up to rest on his son's shoulder. "Yes, it is." They stood there, father and son, letting the rain wash over them. Maelis stepped back, giving them space, and watched as something fundamental shifted between them. Some wall that had been built brick by brick over years of fear and overprotection began to crack. Eventually, they went back inside, soaked and shivering. Well, Maelis was shivering. The Krosses seemed unbothered by the cold. "Tomorrow," Dravian said as they rode the elevator back up, "we'll discuss routines, schedules, what Lysander needs." "What he needs," Maelis said, "is more of that. More world, more experience. It's dangerous. Living is dangerous. Existing in a gilded cage isn't living." Dravian's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Over the following weeks, Maelis learned the rhythms of the Kross household, learned that Lysander had perfect pitch and could identify people by their heartbeat, learned that Dravian conducted business calls at 3 in the morning and never ever ate in front of others, learned that the executive floor had a panic room disguised as a supply closet, and that certain board members visited only after midnight. She learned that the building had secrets in its bones, but mostly, she learned that Dravian Kross was terrified of his own son, not of Lysander himself, but of failing him, of the boy's blindness being somehow his fault, some genetic curse passed down through bloodlines that carried more than just DNA. "You treat him like he's broken," Maelis said one evening, 6 weeks into her employment. They were in Dravian's office, Lysander asleep in an adjacent room. "He's not. You don't understand." "Then help me understand." She moved closer, close enough to see the fine lines around his eyes that suggested age his smooth skin contradicted. "Why do you look at him like you're mourning?" Dravian's control slipped, just for a moment, "Because he'll never see a sunset, never read a book the way I did, never look at someone he loves and see their face. He'll hear music you can't imagine, feel textures you overlook, experience the world in ways you never could." Maelis's voice was firm. "Different isn't less. You sound very certain." "I am certain, because I've watched him thrive every time you let him out of the cage you've built." Dravian turned away, but not before she saw the flash of pain across his features. "The world isn't kind to those who are different." "No," Maelis agreed, "but hiding from it doesn't help. You don't know what you're asking." "Then, show me." The words hung between them, an echo of that first night. Dravian was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved to his desk, unlocked a drawer, and pulled out a black silk blindfold. "3 nights," he said. "I'll give you 3 nights of understanding. You'll experience what my son experiences. Every meal, every task, every moment, in complete darkness. Why? Because you think you understand. But you don't, you can't. Not until you've lived it." Maelis took the blindfold. The silk was cool against her fingers, expensive and unsettling. "And you?" she asked. "What will you do?" "I'll guide you." Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "The way you think I should guide him. We'll see if your certainty survives 3 days without sight." It was a challenge, a test, maybe even a punishment for pushing too hard. "Deal," Maelis said. The blindfold went on that night. Darkness swallowed her whole. Not the darkness of closing your eyes, but absolute absence of light. The silk blocked everything, even the ambient glow of electronics. Panic hit first, immediate and primal. Her hands came up instinctively, reaching for something, anything to orient herself. Breathe. Dravian's voice came from her left. Your other senses will compensate. Give them time. Maelis forced air into her lungs, forced her hands to lower. Listen, Dravian said. What do you hear? Your voice. The air conditioning. My heartbeat. Deeper. She focused. Beneath the obvious sounds, there were others. The hum of the building's electrical systems. The distant rumble of the city outside. The whisper of Dravian's breathing, slower and steadier than her own. Now, walk to me. I don't know where you are. Yes, you do. You heard my voice. You know the direction. Trust it. Maelis took a step. Her foot found solid ground. Another step. Her shin hit something. A chair, maybe. Pain bloomed, but she kept moving, hands outstretched. Her fingers found fabric. Dravian's suit jacket. Well done, he said, and she could hear the approval in his voice. Now tell me what you feel. His hand guided hers to the desk. Maelis's fingers traced the surface. Smooth wood, cool to the touch. The grain ran horizontally. There was a slight depression where years of paperwork had worn the finish. Mahogany, Dravian said. 150 years old. Can you feel the history in it? Maelis could. Or maybe she was imagining it. But there was something in the texture, the weight of the wood under her palm, that spoke of time and use, and countless hands that had touched it before hers. This is how Lysander experiences everything, Dravian said softly. Every surface is a story. Every sound is information. But it's exhausting. Constant vigilance. No rest. They continued through the night. Dravian guided her through tasks, pouring water without sight, finding her way through rooms she'd walked 100 times, eating a meal when she couldn't see the food. That last one was humiliating. She spilled twice, stabbed her lip with a fork, couldn't tell what she was eating half the time. Lysander does this every day, Dravian said. Every meal, every drink. Always aware that people are watching, judging. By the second night, Maelis's other senses had sharpened. She could navigate Dravian's office without collision, could identify objects by touch alone, could hear the difference between his footsteps and the security guards 3 floors down. But she was exhausted. Her mind never stopped processing, never stopped working to compensate for the missing sense. Every moment required conscious effort. Now you understand, Dravian said on the third night, why I want to protect him, why I've built walls around his world. Maelis sat in darkness, the blindfold still firmly in place. Her head ached. Her nerves were raw. She wanted nothing more than to rip the silk away and let light flood back in. But she didn't. I understand, she said slowly, that it's hard, that it's exhausting, that the world isn't built for him. She turned toward Dravian's voice. But I also understand that he's stronger than you think, that he's adapted in ways you haven't noticed because you're too busy protecting him from challenges he could overcome. You've had 3 days, and I'm an adult, with years of visual memory to draw on. Lysander has been building his world from scratch. He's not surviving despite his blindness. He's thriving because of how he's learned to perceive. Maelis pulled the blindfold off. Light stabbed her eyes. She blinked against it, tears streaming down her face as her vision adjusted. Dravian stood by the window. The city lights behind him created a halo effect, making him look otherworldly. His expression was unreadable. You proved your point, Maelis said, wiping her eyes. It's hard. It's isolating. But you proved mine too. I adapted. In 3 days. Imagine what Lysander has learned in 10 years. It's not the same. You're right. It's not. Because he's better at it than I'll ever be. Maelis stood, her legs unsteady. Stop mourning what he can't do. Start celebrating what he can. Dravian turned fully toward her. In the low light, his eyes caught the glow from outside, reflecting it back in a way that was definitely not human. You don't know what you're asking me to risk. Then tell me, really tell me, what are you so afraid of? The lights went out. Not just in the office, in the entire building. Darkness slammed down like a physical force, absolute and suffocating. Emergency lighting should have kicked in. It didn't. Maelis heard Dravian move, fast, inhumanly fast. His hand found her arm in the darkness. Grip iron tight. Don't move, he whispered. Don't make a sound. What's happening? They're here. A high-pitched whine filled the air. Not quite audible, but felt, a pressure in Maelis' skull that made her teeth ache. She recognized it from her security training. High-frequency jamming. It would disable communications, scramble electronic locks, create chaos. Somewhere in the building, glass shattered. Lysander, Dravian breathed, and the fear in his voice was primal. The boy was 3 rooms away, alone. In the dark, in the distance, Maelis heard footsteps, multiple sets, moving with purpose through the blackout. The Silver Syndicate had come calling. The high-frequency whine bored into Maelis' skull like a drill bit. She pressed her palms against her ears, but it made no difference. The sound wasn't just sound, it vibrated through bone, through teeth, through the fluid in her inner ear. Dravian's grip on her arm tightened. I can't see. What? The frequency. It's disrupting. I can't filter the darkness. Everything's static. Maelis understood with sudden terrible clarity. Vampire vision worked by processing ambient light humans couldn't detect. The jamming signal was overwhelming that processing. They'd weaponized darkness against predators who owned the night. Glass shattered again. Closer now. 2nd floor. Maybe 3rd. Lysander, Dravian said again, and started to move. Maelis yanked him back. Stop. You'll run straight into them. I have to. You're blind. You'll get him killed. The words hit him like a slap. She felt him go rigid, felt the tremor that ran through his frame. Somewhere in the building, men were moving toward his son, and he couldn't see to stop them. Maelis reached into her pocket. Her fingers found the smooth plastic of her earbuds, the noise-cancelling ones she used to block out the building's hum during late shifts. She put them in, tapped the button. The whine disappeared. The pressure in her skull released like a popped blister. I can hear, she said. I can guide you. You can't. I've cleaned this building for 2 years. I know every room, every corner, every loose floorboard. She grabbed his hand, laced her fingers through his. Trust me, for 3 seconds he didn't move. She felt the war in him, pride against desperation, control against chaos. Then his fingers tightened around hers. Tell me where to go. Maelis closed her eyes. In the absolute darkness, it made no difference. She listened. Footsteps on the stairs, moving up. 3 sets, maybe 4. Heavy boots. Military precision. Hallway. 20 feet straight ahead. There's a fire door at the end. They moved. Dravian's steps were uncertain at first, trusting her guidance against every instinct. She felt his weight shift, felt him fight the urge to take control. Door in 5 feet. 4. 3. Stop. Her free hand found the push bar. The door opened soundlessly. She'd oiled these hinges herself last month. Stairs going up. 12 steps. Railing on your right. They climbed. Maelis counted each step in her head. her internal map of the building unfolding in the darkness. Behind them, she heard the fire door on the ground floor crash open. "They're in the stairwell," she whispered. "How many?" "4. Moving fast." They reached the landing. Maelis pulled Dravian right into the third-floor corridor. Her shoes made no sound on the carpet. Years of moving invisibly through occupied spaces had taught her how to walk like a ghost. Dravian's dress shoes were louder. She stopped, knelt, untied them. "What are you?" "Take them off. Socks too." He obeyed. When they moved again, his bare feet were silent on the carpet. The server room was at the end of the hall. Lysander's study was adjacent to it, connected by an interior door. Maelis had cleaned both rooms 100 times. She knew the layout better than her own apartment. 60 feet ahead. "Stay close to the left wall. There's a water fountain at 30 feet. We go around it." They moved. Maelis's hand trailed along the wall, counting door frames. 1, 2, 3. Behind them, boots hit the third-floor landing. "Faster," Dravian breathed. "No, they're listening for us." Slow and silent, beats fast and loud. She felt his frustration, his need to run, to fight, to tear through anything between him and his son. But he held back. He trusted her. The water fountain. They skirted around it. Maelis's hip brushed the ceramic edge. She knew exactly where it was. Ahead, a new sound. Quiet sobbing. Lysander. Dravian's whole body tensed. Maelis gripped his hand harder. "Not yet. There's someone in the room with him." She could hear it now. 2 sets of breathing. One fast and frightened. One slow and controlled. "Server room door is 10 feet ahead. It'll be locked. I can break it." "No." Too loud. Maelis reached into her other pocket, pulled out her key ring. Master access. The one perk of being invisible infrastructure. She found the right key by touch, the one with the filed edge she'd marked herself. The lock turned with a soft click. The server room was a maze of equipment racks, cable bundles, and cooling units. Maelis had navigated it in the dark before, during power tests. She knew the path. Follow exactly. Racks on both sides. 18 inches of clearance. Don't touch anything. They moved through the narrow passage. The sobbing was clearer now, coming from the study beyond. A voice spoke. Male. Cultured. Amused. "It's all right, child. We're not here to hurt you. We're here to save you from the mistake your father made." "Don't touch me," Lysander's voice cracked. "Don't. Your father brought human filth into our world. He's compromised the bloodline. We're simply correcting his error." Maelis felt Dravian shake. Not fear. Rage. She squeezed his hand 3 times. "Wait, wait, wait." They reached the interior door. It was ajar. Lysander must have run through it when the power died, seeking the familiar space of his study. Maelis leaned close to Dravian's ear. One man, 6 feet from the door. Lysander's behind him, near the desk. "When I tap your hand, go low and left. He'll be expecting high and center." "How do you know?" "Because that's how predators think." She took a breath, pulled her earbuds out. The wine slammed back into her skull, but she was ready for it. She tapped the floor with her shoe. Once, twice, 3 times. A rhythm. Steady. Clear. The man in the study went silent. Maelis tapped again. Same rhythm. She felt Dravian's hand twitch in hers, felt him recognize the pattern. A heartbeat. Human. Calm. She tapped a 3rd time, then squeezed Dravian's hand once. He moved. Low and left. Exactly as she'd said. She heard the impact, heard the man's grunt of surprise, They went down together in a crash of furniture and breaking glass. Maelis dropped to her knees, crawled forward with her hands out. Lysander. It's Maelis. Come to my voice. I can't see. I know. Neither can your father. Come to me. She heard him move, heard his hands slapping the floor. She kept talking, kept her voice steady, and then his hand found hers. Behind them, the fight was brutal and brief. Dravian might have been blind, but he was still faster, still stronger. The sound of breaking bone echoed in the small space. Then silence. Dravian, Maelis called. It's done. We're here. She heard him breathing hard, heard him move toward her voice. His hand found her shoulder, then Lysander's head. Are you hurt? No. Dad, I couldn't see. I couldn't. I know. I know. Dravian pulled them both close. Maelis felt his arms around them, felt the tremor in his frame. You're safe now. In the distance, more glass broke. The other three were still in the building. We need to move, Maelis said. Can you carry him? Yes. Then follow me out. Same way we came in. They moved back through the server room, through the corridor, down the stairs. Maelis led them to the basement, to the service tunnel she used for trash removal. It opened onto the street 2 blocks away. Emergency lights finally flickered on as they emerged into the cold night air. Maelis blinked against the sudden brightness, saw Dravian clearly for the first time since the attack. His shirt was torn, blood on his hands, not his own. His eyes were wild, still adjusting to light that worked again. Lysander clung to him, face pressed against his father's chest. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had finally noticed the chaos. Dravian looked at Maelis, really looked at her. You saved him. We saved him, she corrected. I couldn't see. I was useless. You were blind, not useless. There's a difference. She touched his arm. He learns from you every day. Tonight you learned from him. That's what family does. Something shifted in his face. The rigid control cracked, and underneath was raw gratitude, wonder, and something else she couldn't name. The board meeting, he said quietly. Tomorrow night. I want you there. I'm a janitor. No, you're the person who sees what we miss. That's worth more than any bloodline. 3 weeks later, Maelis stood in the executive boardroom wearing clothes that still felt like a costume. The Silver Syndicate's surviving members sat around the table, their faces carved from ice. Dravian stood at the head. Lysander sat beside him, hands folded on the table, head high. This is irregular, one board member said, staring at Maelis. Humans don't attend these meetings. This human does, Dravian replied. His voice was quiet, absolute. She has more courage in her smallest finger than most of you have shown in centuries. If anyone has an objection, you're welcome to leave. No one moved. The meeting proceeded. Maelis took notes, offered observations, and watched Dravian defend every point with the same fierce certainty he'd shown in the darkness. When it ended, Lysander found her hand under the table and squeezed it once. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos. Inside, something had shifted. The building felt different now. Not sterile, not cold, like something frozen had finally begun to thaw. Maelis walked to the window, looked out at the lights below, and felt the rhythm of her own heartbeat, steady, clear, and finally heard.